When the people fear the government, there's tyranny. But when the government fears the people, there's liberty. That was Thomas Jefferson. What we saw yesterday was not an anti-democratic revolt or rebellion or insurrection, as all the former so-called presidents put it, whether it was Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, George W. Bush, and even the hapless and worthless Jimmy Carter. No, it was the American people rising up. It wasn't Antifa. It was the American people. It was conservatives, libertarians, peoples of faith who have had enough. As Popeye used to say in our youth, when enough is enough, enough is too much. I can't takes it no more. And that's what happened. It wasn't violent. No one was hurt from the government, the so-called government, the cockroaches that infest the slimy halls of our nation's capital, the congressmen, the senators who were scared for their life and went into hiding as cowards. No, it was an innocent female military veteran who was murdered by a security guard in the Capitol on behalf of those people that were hiding while a legitimate rebellion was taking place. As I write in my column today, and you can find it at freedomwatchusa.org, and I'm going to embed this podcast, it was Jefferson who said that we were going to have such a rebellion. He predicted it, and he said, and went even further, that we would have to shed the blood of tyrants and patriots yet again, and what's a few thousand dead to refresh the tree of liberty. Well, he didn't want violence. I don't want violence. But what you're seeing now on all the cable networks, including Fox News, obviously under the orders of leftist CEO Lachlan Murdoch, is a condemnation of what went on yesterday. Washington, D.C. is afraid for their lives, and they should be afraid for their lives, but their lives were not taken. And I don't want to see their lives taken or even harmed. And neither do the patriots that were in the Capitol yesterday. You know, the scene of that individual sitting at the desk of Nancy Pelosi, that's our desk. That's not her desk. This woman, a deceitful liar, day in and day out, someone who has subverted the Constitution, deserves to have someone at least sit at her desk and say, hey, this belongs to us, not to you. You are not some privileged nobility like Louis XV and Queen Antoinette, who had their heads lopped off at the guillotine in Paris at Place de la Concorde. No, we are the American people, and we own this house. And that's the problem, is that they think they own it, not us. And the arrogance of the hosts of Fox News, of CNN, the Communist News Network, and MSNBC and the others. And that's why in my book, It Takes a Revolution, Forget the Scandal Industry, I say, forget the scandal industry, who now are condemning what went on and in fact now have crowned as the president. They crowned him. Just watch it. You'll see. Joe Biden, someone who was bought and paid for by the communist butchers of Beijing, who mowed down 10,000 innocent citizens, mostly youth, in 1991 at Tiananmen Square, when they simply protested the oppression and walked through the streets of Beijing with a statue of liberty. Unbelievable. This is going to be our president. And this vice president, Kamala Harris, is even worse. Joe Biden, bought and paid for by the butchers of Beijing. The left now controls all three branches of our government. The purge and the insurrection is coming, not from the people who moved on the Capitol yesterday, but from our own so-called government. And that's why we have to rise up. As Thomas Jefferson said, we would have to someday. But we don't need to shed the blood of patriots. Go out and read my book, which you can get at Amazon.com. It Takes a Revolution, Forget the Scandal Industry. I have proposals, borrowing from Thomas Jefferson, on how peacefully and legally we can wage a revolution and rid ourselves of the cockroaches that occupy not just Capitol Hill, but our federal courts and the deep state in the executive branch. But we must act now. We must act quickly, or we will lose the opportunity to save this country. We have to act under the divine providence, as our founding father said in the Declaration of Independence, of God and his Son. And in addition to implementing proposals which I make in It Takes a Revolution, Forget the Scandal Industry, such as citizens' grand juries, which we're going to commission, we are going to indict the paid off clown of the butchers of Beijing, Joe Biden, his son, and his brother, and others who are involved in the bribery scandal. We're going to go on to James Comey, to Andrew McCabe, to Obama's intelligence czars, Clapper and Brennan, to Obama himself, to the Clintons, and of course, again, as I say, the Bidens. They will be held accountable first, as we held Robert Mueller accountable last year in a citizens' grand jury when he was indicted with the testimony of Dr. Jerome Corsi, Mueller and his prosecutors having attempted to suborn perjury from Corsi lest he be indicted and thrown in prison for the rest of his life to implicate President Trump in Russian collusion crimes. And then, of course, there is Vice President Mike Pence, who, much like Brutus of the Roman Senate, Pence, who for the next 13 days as president of the U.S. Senate, stabbed not just the president in the back, but the American people in the back like Brutus. He could have sent back to the states, given the unconstitutional elections that occurred in Michigan, in Pennsylvania, in Georgia, and Wisconsin, as well as the rank voter fraud, he could have sent back the certifications. He never was asked to overturn an election, just to send it back. And ask yourself this question: how in the year 2000 did the Supreme Court invalidate the powers of the state of Florida to conduct a recount of an election with regard to George W. Bush, 5 so-called conservative justices at that time, yet now say that they are powerless to intervene with unconstitutional actions by the states in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Georgia, and Wisconsin? Our Supreme Court is corrupt to the core. They're a bunch of political hacks, and even the president's own justices, which he bragged about, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Barrett, stabbed him in the back as well. And that's the thesis of my book. Without a federal judiciary that will protect the American people, we are in a revolutionary state. Every 3 branch of government is corrupt to the core, and in particular, the federal judicial branch, which Thomas Jefferson opposed as unelected, predicting they would become despots and tyrants, which they did. So next spring, in addition to the citizens' grand juries, Freedom Watch and Larry Klayman, yours truly, will summon experts from all over the country. We will meet, and pursuant to our Declaration of Independence, which says that we have the right to alter or abolish our government when it becomes unresponsive to the needs of we the people, we will meet to form a new government by and for the people at Independence Hall in Philadelphia, my birthplace and the birthplace of liberty. And we will reenact the Constitution with certain changes, such as taking the immunity away from federal officials, federal judges, and prosecutors. They will be held legally accountable for their acts against the people. And if they do not adhere to this modification of our Constitution, they will be indicted, tried, imprisoned, and kept under lock and key where they belong. We will do all of this peacefully and legally. And yesterday, remember, the protesters did not harm the hair of one person on Capitol Hill. Yet it was one of the protesters who was murdered in cold blood by a security guard on behalf of the congressmen and senators who were hiding in fear in the Capitol. Today, every one of the establishment in Washington, D.C. has to watch its back, his or her back, everyone, because they now know that the American people are rising up to challenge them. And they know that if they push too hard, they will provoke the bloody revolution that Thomas Jefferson predicted. I want to head that off. So I want you to go out and read what I have to say. You can get It Takes a Revolution, Forget the Scandal Industry at Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, and you can go to Freedom Watch's website and get it there for free if you make a contribution over $50. This is what we need to do. I'm not making money on this book, but the American people need to be educated. They're now beginning to understand that we are in a revolution, that the radical left is about ready to enslave us. We will not be enslaved. And with the grace of God, we will rise up right now if we help ourselves and save this great country. Thank you for listening to me. God bless you. And with God's grace, we will prevail. I'll be back tomorrow with another special podcast. And watch for my columns. There's going to be at least one every day because I've got to set forth, I've got to straighten out the lies and deceit which you're even now hearing on Fox News. God bless you.